Bring in show music, please.
Hi, I'm CNBC producer Zach Valisi. Today on Squawk Pod, FDA Commissioner Dr. Marty Makary is pushing for changes in our health system. More approvals, more rare disease treatment, and more transparency.
We decided at the FDA that if we reject a drug, the public deserves to know why. So for the first time in history, our letters detailing why a drug has not been accepted, detailing that we gave guidance that was not followed, detailing why the clinical trial showed no benefit, that is now public information in real time.
In the AI world, Nvidia reported strong earnings and guidance. CEO Jensen Huang spoke to our own Becky Quick.
AI is a new industrial revolution.
Huang even weighs in on the other AI story of the morning, the Pentagon's showdown with Anthropic.
Here we are in a standoff that is actually, I think, a much bigger deal than maybe we're even giving it credit for.
Plus, the Beast Games finale in the books, and Season 3 already underway. Beast Industries CEO Jeff Housenbold on producing MrBeast, the most followed person on the internet with 1 billion followers across all platforms.
How much more can that grow?
There's 7 more billion people to get.
It's Thursday, February 26th. Squawk Pod begins right now.
Stand Becky by in 3, 2, 1. Cue it, please.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Squawk Box right here on CNBC. We are live from the NASDAQ market site in Times Square. I'm Becky Quick along with Joe Kernen and Andrew Ross Sorkin. Chip giant Nvidia reporting better than expected fourth quarter results. It was driven by revenue growth of 75% in its core data center business. That's a business that's very important to Nvidia. They control about 95% of that market. They see profit margins or gross margins of 75%. They are the 800-pound gorilla and then some when it comes to all of this. And we spoke with NVIDIA's CEO, Jensen Huang, about that revenue growth and AI chip demand first on CNBC.
Demand is really strong and it's diverse. It's coming from all over the place. At the core of it, Becky, what's happening is that AI just went through its third inflection. The first one was 2 years ago with ChatGPT. And then the second one was about a year ago when the reasoning AI agents came out, reasoning AI systems came out, and the number of tokens, the amount of computing demand that it needed to be able to reason and produce all the excellent answers that these chatbots were doing was really sky high. And then now, with these agentic systems, we're now having these agents able to reason, take tasks, and actually do work. And so the agentic systems are doing incredibly well all over the world. Of course, you've heard how Claude Code and OpenAI's Codex are doing incredibly well in companies all over the world in software programming, but it's starting to spread out into all these different other types of tasks. And so at the core, it's because AI has gone through a new inflection point and the amount of computing demand is off the charts.
Well, let's talk a little bit about your customers, too, because you did say that the big companies, the big hyperscalers, actually increased the amount of spending. And I think they make up about half of the spending that went into the data center segment in particular. But you said the other customers were growing really quickly, and that's where so much of the growth came from. Who are those other customers?
You know, most people see AI as a chatbot. And it's understandable because OpenAI is so popular and they're doing so well. And we hear a lot about Claude Code. But remember, AI is about a new way of doing software and affects every single industry. NVIDIA is really fortunate in the sense that we are the computing platform, the accelerated computing platform for every cloud, for any model, as well as every different domains of science. And so we're seeing success, whether it's in small cloud service providers regionally around the world. It could be an enterprise. Our big partnership with Lilly, we have many others. Car companies that are building autonomous vehicles, the robo-taxi era is coming. And so there's a whole bunch of computing being built for that. Scientific computing is being completely revolutionized by artificial intelligence. And so, you know, the number of industries that are affected by AI, because AI is fundamentally a new way of doing software, is going to be very broad-based. And that's one of the reasons why I say AI is a new industrial revolution, because every single company is affected, every industry will be transformed, and every country will power it. And so it's broad-based.
Again, though, you talk about their market share of that data center chips, 95%. The estimates run from 90 to 98%, but about 95%. And when you have margins like that, 75%, it's obviously a market that lots of others want to get involved with. You did hear earlier this week about AMD cutting a deal with Meta that's supposed to be a multi-year deal that they're going to be looking at as well. You have all kinds of competitors who are trying to get in on that, but you also have Nvidia kind of running as fast as they can. The new chips that are going to be rolled out, they talked about those new chips that are coming Vera Rubins. That will be the second half of this fiscal year, and that is the way that they are planning to try and keep some of that market share. We'll show you more excerpts from this interview a little later today, just talking about the competition they're facing, talking about what he sees with the SaaS apocalypse, or whatever you want to call this, just where those SaaS companies are really under pressure, because you also heard a report last night from Salesforce. That stock was trading a little lower on some of these questions, but we'll get Jensen's take on whether this is overdone in the market.
It's just how long can you keep running ahead of the law of large numbers?
Yeah. And
it seems
that's
like
part of the question.
That's like Einstein could have proposed a physical law, that there's something called the law, because but no one's ever, you can't break through the law of law. But AI might be so, it may be different this time, so that you can, how do you do a $5 trillion company, how do you double a $5 trillion, I guess it goes to 10 trillion.
Yeah,
Right.
well, look, OpenAI is a good example of a company that had a valuation of $200 billion and $400 billion and $500
But we're
billion.
at 5 now. And you're getting 75% revenue growth on what number did they get the 75 on?
It was $68.1 billion.
Is what they did now.
Is what they did this time
So do you
around.
do 75 on 68 next year?
Well, that's where the doubters come in. And if you look at the valuation that the street gives, just in terms of PE ratio, they are valuing Nvidia at lower ratios than they are any of the other chips at this point.
People
because
say
because of exactly what you're saying.
The bears say it's priced for perfection. It's almost priced. You are assuming they're going to beat on all metrics.
Yeah, perfection
right now,
plus.
with where it is. But they may even continue to beat on all metrics next quarter and the quarter after that.
The guidance
and the
that
quarter
they
after
issued for the current quarter, in terms of revenue, was $5 billion above what the street was expecting. And still, you saw the stock at one point up 3.5% to 4%. It dropped while I was talking to him yesterday, and now it looks like it's up by less than 1%.
So have you thought, both of you, about how many things would be replaced by agentic AI? I've only thought about travel agents and a couple of things. How many things are there?
I think you might be replaced by AI, but yeah.
Not you?
Max Headroom?
No, I'm going first. Did he speak at all to the circular stuff? The whole idea of this sort of vendor financing, because vendor financing can work in certain instances. By the way, Boeing does vendor financing. Like, people do vendor financing.
He used to do some great.
Yeah. We didn't get into in depth with that, but if you looked at the numbers yesterday, the cash flow that they had at the end, or the cash and cash equivalents that they had at the end of the quarter, was $20 billion more than it had been a year ago. And other analysts were looking at that, saying if you were worried about the vendor financing, that tells you that they have money to spread around. The other issue is that so much of the vendor financing is kind of pointing at areas where you could see a real bottleneck for AI to try and move forward. At one point, people thought it was the Nvidia chips, but they said they've got supply to last several quarters looking out. That was the other thing they said last night. So the bottleneck is not going to be Nvidia chips probably at this point, but other arenas, and that's where some of that money's going.
And where would you try to play if it doesn't work, Andrew? What would the journal points out that bears they're doing Amazon and Alphabet. They're not doing Nvidia. They're supposed to come up with a combined $670 billion to build out just their AI infrastructure. So is that overdone for those two? Can they? They got it, don't they? I mean, Meta's and Alphabet's results.
No, they need to do it.
Out of control too, and they need to do it, but they got the money too, don't they?
And they have the money. It's a different story, but that's a different question than the rest of the whole business. We'll see.
Netflix co-CEO Ted Sarandos is reportedly heading to the White House for meetings today. A Politico report says Sarandos will be talking about his company's bid for Warner Brothers Discovery, obviously, and President Trump's call for Netflix to fire board member Susan Rice, but it's unclear if Sarandos will meet with President Trump himself. Netflix declined to comment on the report, and the White House says it's not going to provide information or discuss private meetings that may or may not be happening at the White House.
The Pentagon potentially laying some groundwork for a move against Anthropic. Axios now reporting the Defense Department also asking Boeing and Lockheed Martin yesterday about the company's exposure to Anthropic's AI model Claude. That could be an indication that officials are getting ready to label Anthropic a supply chain risk. The Pentagon putting pressure on Anthropic to let the government use the company's technology for what they're saying is any lawful purpose it wants. Anthropic has pushed back on that broad access, and sources tell CNBC that Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth gave Anthropic until tomorrow afternoon to provide wide access to its technology before the government could label Anthropic a supply chain risk or invoke the Defense Production Act. So here we are in a standoff that is actually, I think, a much bigger deal than maybe we're even giving it credit for, because
it involves so many things.
But this was the one.
You say the word Hegseth and it involves.
No, it's not even. To me, it's not even about politics. It's about the idea that Claude and Anthropic in particular, they've been the most worried about safety of all of the companies. Mm-hmm. They seem to have this week. We talked about it earlier this week. Sort of, lessened some of their views
they gave
about
lip
that.
service to it, but were acted differently.
Well, no. So there's two things going on. There's the safety issue, just about like how safe is Claude, how safe are all these models, and the fact is that they're lessening that in their safety briefings and things.
More competitive.
To be more competitive.
So
at the same time that they're saying that this stuff could still be used in really bad ways.
Yeah.
And so here we are.
I do think it's a serious concern that Dario Modi has had over this time. And by the way, we talked to Jensen Huang about this too. We'll play that a little later. Just bringing this up because Anthropic is a
huge
strategic
client
partner.
And customer.
And
where's he land? Can you give us a little hint?
I asked him.
The Defense Department has the right to use the technology and use the products that they procure in the way that serves their needs. And obviously their needs are, it's the dependent of war. In the case of Anthropic, of course, they have the right to decide how they would like to market their products and what kind of use cases it could be used for. And so I think they both have their reasonable perspective. And however it gets worked out, this won't be Anthropic is not the only AI company in the world. And of course, the United States is not the only customer for any company in the world. And so I think they both have their proper positions. I hope that they can work it out. But if it doesn't get worked out, it's also not the end of the world.
I don't think we're agentic threat. I don't think it's a threat to us.
Why not?
Because because it's garbage in, garbage out, and we have perfected our garbage.
Oh, you mean to us as anchors?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought. I'm talking about
I think but I think it's a genuine threat to us.
You can't. They don't have generative AI.
Our jobs
yes, I see that too.
Even you have perfected. You have.
I like how you each say even you. You won't.
No, even you have perfected.
Well, Becky's obviously safe.
Well, she's safe, but even you are essential. You're essential. You need key man insurance if you don't.
I think Andrew's talking about concerns about humanity.
I'm saying there's
not
some
about
real.
ourselves.
I'm talking about humanity. I'm talking about robots that are controlled by Claude and drones.
All right, they're not going to be sitting here.
The way the government
anytime soon
can use these things and can use these things either inappropriately on their own or use these things inappropriately without even knowing.
You said earlier agentic was going to replace us. That's what I'm still.
You're still back on that.
Yeah, I'm still back on that.
Always thinking of
Right. Enough about me. Let's talk about me.
Focus on number one.
Right.
Cheese will be next.
Coming up on Squawk Pod, FDA Commissioner Dr. Marty Makary, the internal politics at the FDA, and the number of medical reforms he's been pushing forward, just 10 months on the job.
We've advocated for many more reforms in the 10 months that I've been at FDA. We advocated for the renewal of the Pediatric Priority Voucher Program that gives companies $100 to $200 million in the form of a transferable voucher if their rare disease drug is approved. Rare diseases is the vast majority of the resources in our drug effort. It is now the majority of drugs that we approve are for rare diseases.
We're back after this break. Welcome back to Squawk Pod. Here's Becky Quick.
The FDA has released a framework to accelerate the development of therapies for rare diseases. Joining us right now is FDA Commissioner Dr. Marty Makary. And Commissioner, thank you for being with us today. This was big news earlier this week when you put out this new framework the FDA is going to be working on. And I think you phrased it best when you said rare isn't really all that rare at all. Rare diseases impact about 30 million Americans. But the system that we have set up right now to approve any sort of medications, therapies, that might assist with that is really set up for ailments that affect much larger populations. What are you doing with these new requirements that you're laying out?
Well, good morning, and you're exactly right, Becky. The system has been set up for common diseases and not rare diseases. For example, the requirements to do randomized controlled trials when these populations are very small. And I want to thank you personally for your passion on this topic. We need to generate more awareness. I personally am very passionate about this topic, having taken care of hundreds of individuals with rare diseases in my career at Johns Hopkins. That's typically where people would go, to tertiary medical centers. And when you take care of these people and you break bad news and you say, hey, there's nothing out there that we know of that can be used as a therapeutic, it has an impact on your soul and your thinking. And so I bring a sense of urgency and a sense of we've got to do something about this community to my role at the agency. As you said, about 1 in 11 Americans has a rare disease. Now, the FDA in the past, historically, had treated therapeutics for rare diseases like an afterthought. But today we have tax credits, waivers of the $2 to $4 million application fees, extended market exclusivity, and we've got a new rare disease innovation hub to train the reviewers on standardized approaches. And we've advocated for many more reforms in the 10 months that I've been at FDA. We advocated for the renewal of the pediatric priority voucher program that gives companies $100 to $200 million in the form of a transferable voucher if their rare disease drug is approved. Rare diseases is the vast majority of the resources in our drug effort. It is now the majority of drugs that we approve are for rare diseases. And President Trump signed that voucher program into law 3 weeks ago. We also announced at JPM that we're going to have more regulatory flexibilities with manufacturing requirements. You don't have to routinely run 3 batches of a product when a scientist in a lab develops a new gene therapy for a baby like baby KJ. We're going to use Bayesian statistics that looks at all the trials, all the data in the world, not just looking at a trial in isolation. And of course, we published in the New England Journal of Medicine and announced on Monday our plausible mechanism pathway. We want to see more baby KJs. If there's a mechanism that makes sense, we waive all the clinical trial requirements and we say if this is safe and looks like it works for an ultra rare disease, we're going to go ahead and green light that therapy.
Marty, I love all of these things that you're laying out. I think it's incredibly important. We just did a story yesterday about baby KJ. For anybody who wasn't watching, he was a baby who was treated at Children's Hospital of Philadelphia with a genetic therapy, the first of its kind, and it looks like he's doing very well. And huge props for what you are doing. I will also say investors that I've spoken with will say these are great moves for ultra rare in particular, but there are concerns about slightly less rare diseases and some of the things that have been happening there. This was laid out yesterday in a Wall Street Journal opinion piece or editorial where they raised questions about what you are doing, which looks like it's great for rare disease, but then at the same time, Dr. Vinay Prasad at the FDA has been quietly, they say, undermining the program by, turning down with a CRL, a complete review letter that turns down some of the things for these companies that are working on rare diseases where they had been following the advice of the FDA from earlier, and it looks like they're changing the rules of the game later. How do you respond to that?
Well, first of all, Becky, there's always going to be 2 sides to a story. Imagine in a theoretical, I know this has never happened to you, but if you have a dispute with your spouse and you go to a captive audience, you're always going to give one side of the story. And so we decided at the FDA that if we reject a drug, the public deserves to know why. So for the first time in history, our letters detailing why a drug has not been accepted, detailing that we gave guidance that was not followed, detailing why the clinical trial showed no benefit, that is now public information in real time. So I think there has been a bit of an effort to find a boogeyman to account for certain products that were not approved. For example, there was a product where the researchers drilled a burr hole, literally a hole in people's skulls to inject intrathecally into the ventricle. A therapy, the randomized controlled trial at the end of the randomization period has found no benefit. and yet this is one of the drugs that we were pressured to approve. Now, look, I have a lot of sympathy for those patients. There's nothing out there to offer them. But we're not going to go ahead and approve something like that that has morbidity associated with it if the clinical trial was stone cold normal. The process is pretty simple. If your drug works, it's going to get approved by the FDA. And let's just remember, there are moneyed interests. I get it. If I were an investor and I put in $100 million into a product and you didn't get the results that you liked, it is disappointing. But there has been sort of this effort to put a fatwa on Vinay Prasad by one or two media outlets as if he's the one who's making these decisions. One of them was not even in his center cited in that article.
Doctor, what's he doing in the Trump administration in the first place? He couldn't be confirmed by the Senate, most likely, because he's such an ardent supporter of Bernie Sanders and government-run health care. So what is the upside or what do you see in him to leave him in the position to head up your biologics unit?
Well, Joe, that's part of the smear campaign. I'm picking the best scientist. Vinay Prasad loves President Trump. He did support Bernie Sanders in the past, but he saw the incredible revolution with President Trump and is an ardent supporter of President Trump. Just listen to his podcast.
For this,
well,
Doctor?
If you listen to his podcast for the last 4 years, you'll see that he has been an ardent supporter of everything President Trump has done and is trying to do. We pick people based on the best scientific minds. When you have a surgeon, you want the best surgeon out there. Vinay Prasad is a genius. He's on loan from UCSF. He's published over 500 scientific peer-reviewed articles, and some of the drugs they're criticizing him for that got rejected either had stone-cold normal trial results or he wasn't even involved. His center, the Biologics Center, has had a record number of approvals that it hit in December. And so we're getting stuff done. The system works. If your drug works, it's going to get approved. And if not, the public deserves to know why. We're putting those decisions out there. And final point I'll say is that 100% of the accept or reject decisions at the FDA on my watch have been the accept or reject recommendation of the primary career scientists at the agency. So I stand by our scientists, and again, we put the information out there so it's public. We're meeting 100% of our PDUFA dates for the first time in history, and we're getting decisions out now in a matter of weeks. We have a decision coming out today on a powerful new drug for a type of cancer, and it is going to a response rate double of what's out there. We got that decision out 44 days after the new filing period. Because of our new National Priority Review Program, we want to take that review period down from a year down to a number of weeks. And so we're getting that done, and we're going to get more done. And of course, you may have seen that we have announced we're going from a requirement of 2 clinical trials down to 1. And that alone is going to allow companies to put twice as many drugs through the process.
Yeah, and Marty, again, kudos on all of these moves that you're talking about. I agree with all of it. But I do want to come back to one point that the Journal made about Dr. Prasad. And this is what he's written about in the past. This is what he has certainly been vocal about. They say he seems to believe the cost for drugs that receive accelerated approval exceed their benefits and that nothing short of a large double-blind randomized controlled trials should be sufficient to prove a medicine's efficacy. And you and I have talked about this before. The idea that in rare disease, it's really difficult to do a large double-blind randomized control trial. First of all, you don't have enough patients who you can find to do this. And secondly, most institutions won't do these things, particularly if it's for a life-threatening disease, because it's unethical to insist on a blind trial where some people get a placebo if the end result is they die without it. Do you agree with that theory? Do you think that there should be double-blind randomized trials for rare diseases that have life-threatening consequences?
Look, no, we don't. And Dr. Prasad really has never championed that idea. So that's part of a smear campaign. Again, we've seen a fatwa put on him by one or two media outlets. And investors...
Marty, it's not just one or two media outlets. It's investors who I've spoken with. It is companies who I've spoken with. This is the most common complaint I get from anybody I talk to in the industry. It's from researchers.
Yeah, so look, if a clinical trial shows no benefit in a randomized trial, then it's not going to get approved. But we have a record number of approvals under Dr. Prasad. He authored the plausible mechanism pathway to have more baby KJs. He authored going from 2-to-1 clinical trials for common diseases, and he was part of the National Priority Review Voucher Program to get decisions out in weeks instead of a year. So we do not believe that you have to use a randomized control trial model for all rare diseases. We believe in regulatory flexibilities, and that's why we make that very clear. So the system is very clear. We give guidance. If the guidance is followed, then there's a clear path to approval. But if the trial shows no benefit and harm, then there are two sides to that story, and that's why our decision letters are public.
Doctor, another day, another op-ed piece in the Wall Street Journal. I hope that's not the media organization that you're saying is smearing people. That might be one of the few places I ever feel like I find some balance or objectivity. I know they've been tough on the president about certain things, but now the latest is on the nominee for Surgeon General, and again, she founded a wellness business. Casey Means did. Their criticism is she had a chance to dispute claims linking vaccines with autism, and she said, well, we don't really know, and there's been so many studies that, obviously we don't know, but it doesn't appear to be related to vaccines at this point. Is she the best person? The journal says what HHS needs are serious people who will tell the truth and begin to restore confidence, not, I guess, kind of someone that will agree with RFK Jr. on a lot of the vaccine controversies.
Well, look, I didn't think that was a fair piece. Casey Means has been pretty clear. She believes that the best way to prevent measles and other vaccine-preventable illnesses are through vaccination. And so she's told me, the measles outbreaks that we've seen that predated RFK, people want to peg it to him, but these are folks that didn't get vaccinated 5-6 years ago that are getting it today, and it's a global outbreak. That's not because of RFK. She has told me this is a good reminder as to why people need to get the measles vaccine. So look, you're going to see different spin out there. You're going to see it on, different folks based on moneyed interests, based on partisanship. Casey Means is the best person for the job. Let me tell you why. She is a surgical specialist who saw the futility in going down this road of just operating and medicating on diseases and wanted to get into food as medicine and talk about school lunches and holistic care and insulin resistance and general body inflammation. And she talks about the microbiome and the importance of natural light exposure for kids instead of just medicating them for depression at scale. We need fresh, new ideas in healthcare, and she's the perfect person for that.
Right, for processed foods and everything else. And I want to just thank you for, you knew you were going to be hearing about this stuff, I'm sure, today. And you're a great spokesperson, and we appreciate you, facing questions like these, Doctor.
Yeah.
Thanks so much.
Okay.
Yeah, Commissioner Makary, thank you, and especially thank you for what you're rolling out with rare disease. It's something I'm very focused on, and we do appreciate your coming on to talk about it.
Thanks for your work on this, Becky, and you're going to see some amazing announcements from the FDA in the next couple of weeks, decisions out in weeks instead of the standard year. This is going to be a record number of approvals this year. We're already above our record for 5 and 20-year averages. And you're going to see more coming out very shortly. We're at 100% compliance with our target dates. So I'm happy to report the FDA is strong and is going to continue to be strong.
Dr. Makary, thank you. We look forward to talking to you again soon.
Next on Squawk Pod, producing the most followed person on the internet, MrBeast. Beast Games Season 2 on Amazon Prime just ended, but for Beast Industries CEO Jeff Housenbold, the bigger picture is just beginning.
MrBeast is akin to Mickey Mouse. A very important character, but they have Lucas and Star Wars and Marvel and Avengers and Pixar and Woody. And so what you'll see over time is we're moving away from an individual to building an entertainment platform that will allow for other content and other talent.
The characters coming and the Kalshi controversy brewing right after this. This is Squawk Pod.
You're watching Squawk Box on CNBC. I'm Andrew Ross Sorkin along with Joe Kernen and Becky Quick. A moment last night from the season finale of Beast Games.
I just won $5 million! Let's go!
They've been
so much for watching this show. I can't wait to see what you think of season 3. I'll see you there.
Joining us right now in an exclusive interview to talk about the season, so much more, Beast Industries President and CEO, Jeff Housenbold. Good morning to you.
Good to see you again.
So this is a big deal. We should say he's the most followed. He continues to be the most followed individual on social media. 468 million subscribers on YouTube now.
On YouTube, yep. And over 1 billion across our platforms.
By the way, how much more, before we even get into anything else, how much more can that grow?
There's 7 more billion people to get.
I like how you think.
How many more people are actually on the platforms, though?
About 2.8 billion more.
About 2.8 billion. I'm sure you've looked to figure out, so like, what percentage of the people who are on the platforms are touching him in one way or the other?
It's incredible. In the last 90 days alone, 1.45 billion unique people around the world have watched our content, 80% of those outside the United States. Jimmy is a global phenomenon.
So how much does this show on Amazon change that balance, and how do you think about that versus these other platforms?
First, we want to meet our audiences where they are. So regardless if they're on YouTube or Instagram or TikTok, Amazon Prime, Netflix, we want to create content across multiple platforms to meet the consumer where they are. And each one of those platforms have a strength in terms of format, in terms of content, in terms of demographic. And so, for example, Beast Games ages up and tilts more female than our YouTube audience. So it's good for us, and it gives our advertising partners more breadth and reach.
Right. Long term, and we've talked about this a little bit, I mean, Jimmy is the center of the whole universe. But do you want to try to create other characters, if you will, inside the Beast world? And I'm thinking actually about the winner of Beast Games. We were talking about the winner of the first season, and whether some of these kind of people, or maybe others, sort of turn into sort of beast-like characters almost in this universe.
Yeah, no, it's the right insight. If you think about Jimmy Donaldson, he's akin to Walt Disney, a brilliant storyteller using the medium of his time to create content that engages, inspires, and entertains. And MrBeast is akin to Mickey Mouse, a very important character, but they have Lucas and Star Wars and Marvel and Avengers and Pixar and Woody. And so what you'll see over time is we're moving away from an individual to building an entertainment platform that will allow for other content and other talent to emerge and rise as a star.
I want to ask you about something that's in the news because it's fascinating, and maybe you have a take on it, because I think a lot of executives are thinking about this now. This is the prediction market situation that you sort of fell into, which is there's reports that an editor that worked for Beast Industries was suspended from using the Kalshi platform because they effectively were betting on things that they knew were happening inside the Beast world.
Yeah.
This is like we're like living in a whole new universe now.
The whole prediction markets are a new phenomenon that are rising, and I think corporations, individuals, federal and state regulators are all grappling with. We saw this coming, and so a couple months ago I put in place policies for all of our contestants in Beast Games Season 2 and 3 for our employees to make them aware that we don't want anyone to trade on information, regardless of what the current ambiguities around the law is, this gambling or not. So we put that in place 3 months ago.
Before this happened?
Before this happened. We found out yesterday when it hit the press. We conducted with our chief compliance officer a quick investigation. We put the employee on suspension while we complete that investigation.
So, but this is the big question, which is there's going to be employees, there's going to be contestants potentially in some of these things, but there's also, I imagine, if Jimmy's out in Africa or something, I don't know, and somebody knows that he's there, and someone could bet that he's there or not, or people who are not even attached to the business, who are somehow aware of, see something, understand it, and what you think the rules should be about this. And by the way, this is not a Beast Industries issue.
Yeah,
this is like an everybody issue.
Jeff, kudos on thinking ahead and getting to that point, because when we've had people who have come on from the industry, our point has been it's not your job to police this stuff. I think you were pretty prescient in realizing that and getting ahead of the curve.
Thanks. And I watched your segment with the CEO of Kalshi a couple of days ago, and your insights I thought were exactly right. The prediction markets are going to have to self-police, but I don't think that's sufficient. right? We're going to need to decide, as 20 state AGs are wrestling with this today, is this a gambling state regulatory framework? And I was on Caesar's board, so I know a lot about gambling. Looks like gambling, right? And then the wrestling with the feds who want to mandate it. The government's going to need to figure that out. The private sector is going to need to self-police themselves, and the prediction markets are going to need to put policies in place. But it is ripe for abuse, and our concern is to protect the little people, right, from that, just like the casino companies have to do today.
Do you think it's, I mean, just given now your experience of seeing all this, do you think it's much more widespread than we know? Meaning that there are people all over that are making money in ways that we don't, I mean, it doesn't get, we talk about Kalshi all the time, but we don't really talk about, like, who's actually making the money, and do you think there's employees of all sorts of companies that are just doing this on the side and nobody really knows what's happening?
100%. It's not just employees. You could be a third-party cameraman on set and know what the first song in the rehearsal is for a singer.
Right.
You can be the person reviewing a script and knowing what the end result is. So there's so much information out there, and it's asymmetric, and people are taking advantage of that.
Right. While we have you here, tell us about a couple other things. You're getting into the banking business, the fintech business, basically, in a big way. And I don't even know if our audience knows that about what you're up to.
We're so excited. A couple weeks ago, we announced the acquisition of Step, which was a 6-year-old fintech business founded by Alexi and CJ. And their mission was to help educate people around financial services, around budgeting, around credit, around responsibility, particularly young people establishing credit and getting started. It fits so perfect with our mission, which is to up-level children around the world. And so we're coming together and using Jimmy's reach, our fandom of Gen Z and Gen Alpha. And what we want to do, as Jimmy said in his recent tweet, he said, I grew up without any of this knowledge. I wish I had it. I want to provide it to others. I grew up on welfare and food stamps and felt the same exact way. So what we're going to do is take what is traditionally dry information around financial literacy. We're going to make it entertaining. We're going to gamify it. And we're going to help drive the habits that lead to long-term success for the masses.
I love that. What are the economics of that?
Traditional fintech, right? Checking and savings accounts, not really profitable. It's the base business. Then you have secured and unsecured credit cards. You have personal loans, student loans, mortgages, insurance, and brokerage. And so each one of those businesses have a different profit margin. But the real key is to develop a lifetime relationship with the customer, so as they grow and their personal wealth grows, you're able to capture some of that margin.
You're involved in BitMine.
BitMine's involved with us through an investment into Beast Industries.
Into Beast Industries. So they're invested in you,
correct,
as opposed to you being invested in them. But I assume you care about the future of BitMine, therefore.
I do. BitMine is a leader in the Ethereum staking market. And if you think about stablecoin and the ability to provide a lower cost of capital and pass that on to the consumer, Ethereum is the backbone of stablecoin and the blockchain. And so we're big fans of Ethereum. We think the DeFi movement is really important, and the benefits that it brings consumers in greater access, democratization, lower cost of capital, the ability to move capital around the world in a safe and secure way.
Long term, how many different businesses do you think you can be in?
Well, when you have 1.45 billion users, there's a lot of share of wallet that you could gain. Today, we're in the media business. We're in the consumer products business with our chocolate and Feastables, our toy line, our relationship with Jack Links around healthy protein snacks, our Lunchly business. And now we're into financial services and moving into telecommunications as well.
Wow. Jeff, thank you. Appreciate it.
Good to see you guys again. Thank you.
And we should, by the way, make a disclosure that CNBC and Kalshi have a commercial relationship, given that we were just talking about Kalshi and what's going on in the prediction market space. Thank you.
That's Squawk Pod for today. Thanks for listening. Squawk Box is hosted by Joe Kernen, Becky Quick, and Andrew Ross Sorkin. Tune in weekday mornings on CNBC at 6 Eastern. To get the smartest takes and analysis from our TV show right into your ears, follow Squawk Pod wherever you get your podcasts. We'll meet you back here tomorrow.
We are clear. Thanks, guys.